Well, hello again. This week's story: with man's best friends like these, who needs enemies? 30 or 40,000 years ago, a lonely, starving wolf visited the campfire of a small hunting party of early men. And throughout the millennia since, we have separated the wild tendencies from the wolf, rendering the perfect companions for work and play, from the tiny Chihuahua to the imposing Great Pyrenees. And for the most part, we as a species have benefited from our relationship with man's best friend. I say for the most part because there have been exceptions. Bert Hugabeen grew up with dogs. His earliest memories include Shadow, a 75-pound German Shepherd dog who provided security while Bert explored around his family's farm, usually wearing nothing but a cowboy hat and a diaper. In elementary school, Bert had a Yorkshire Terrier, a pocket-sized, cuddly companion who followed Bert along his daily newspaper route and made sure the neighborhood cats didn't get out of control. And then came Odie, the Cocker Spaniel, who introduced Bert to a different kind of experience with man's best friend. Odie was cute, but he was also strong-willed, curious, inattentive, and didn't follow instructions well. In fact, this gave rise to Bert's parents' theory that he had somehow managed to meld his own mind and spirit into a canine form of himself. And the following series of events would provide to solidify this theory. Picking huckleberries in the mountains of North Idaho has been a long-standing summer tradition for the Hugabeen family. And no family outing would be complete without the presence of the loyal family dog. One such occasion, the Hugabeens had packed the pickup and camper alongside the narrow mountain road and had scattered themselves among the huckleberry bushes on the steep embankment above the road to harvest the ripe, tangy, flavorful treats. Odie conducted his usual cursory search of the immediate area for squirrels, bunnies, and smelly things to roll himself in, and then wandered off to more interesting ventures. Having a dog in the woods is a comfort, to be sure. With their exceptional hearing and sense of smell, they can warn us about things like dangerous predators and impending doom well before humans might notice such things ourselves. So when Odie began barking furiously in the distance, the Hugabeens took pause to pay attention to the situation. The barking was furious and frenzied for a moment or two, then stopped suddenly, as quickly as it had started. That was strange, Bert's father said. Then he shrugged and resumed picking the juicy berries from their shrubs. Scarcely 30 seconds had passed when Odie suddenly burst out from behind a clutch of huckleberry bushes and darted straight past the Hugabeens, down the embankment and up through the back window of the pickup and camper, where he huddled down so low that only the top of his trembling little furry head and eyeballs could be seen through the windowsill. Okay, that's even more strange. Bert's father's observation was interrupted by a low, bellowing bawl and crashing and snapping of branches and brush coming from the direction of where Odie had just been. Having watched wildlife documentaries before, Bert's parents knew immediately that something bad was about to happen. "Bear!" Bert's mother snatched up her small Hugabeens nearby and raced down the embankment through the huckleberry patches toward the safety of the pickup and camper on the road below. Bert's younger brother, Schlaw, spelled the way it sounds, was the first to reach the camper. He threw open the door, jumped inside, slammed the door behind him, and locked it securely. Thanks, Schlaw. Bert's father, with Bert's little sister Heifer under one arm and a bucket of huckleberries under the other, reached the pickup door and tossed her inside along with the huckleberries, then climbed himself inside and closed and locked the door. Bert's mother wasted a few brief, precious moments begging Schlaw to open the camper door, all the while listening to the approaching vicious beast closing the distance to them. Then she abandoned her attempts to get inside the camper and raced around to the passenger side of the pickup and scrambled inside, pushing Bert up over the seat, then slamming the door just in the nick of time. Milliseconds later, out from the brush burst a snorting, stomping, extremely irritated range bull. You have to live in North Idaho, and particularly on the Palouse, to understand the hazards of a range bull. But they're real, and they happen. A cow? Bert's father shook his head, glaring at Odie, who had regained his courage and was barking confidently again from the relative safety of the backseat of the pickup. Useless dog. Irritating and drawing angry livestock into a huckleberry patch is not the only pitfall of having man's best friend around. In the years that followed, Odie would jump out of a moving truck bed in an unsuccessful attempt to chase a cat sitting on a fence alongside a gravel road. $1,400 vet bill. He would steal and eat an entire box of powdered sugar donuts during a woodcutting trip. $235 vet bill. And he would be transformed into a living pincushion while irritating a porcupine on a camping trip a few years later. $425 veterinary bill. And as inconvenient and expensive as these incidents were, nothing could top Bert's 19th birthday. He had gotten a new oilskin trench coat and a beaverskin cowboy hat as gifts, and he was excited to wear them on an evening stroll along the railroad tracks with Odie. The frogs in the nearby creek banks chirped and croaked peacefully as the sun settled behind the timbered mountaintops in the distance. Bert quietly reflected on his time as a young man living at home with his parents. Bert's quiet reflection on the tracks down by the river was suddenly derailed by Odie entering into a barking fit as he shot out in front of Bert and disappeared into the shadows. "Odie!" Bert commanded. "Get back here!" The commands fell on deaf ears. A commotion just out of view could be heard taking place in the tall grass next to the railroad bed. Bert thought to himself, "Great, another porcupine incident." But this time it would not be a porcupine. The furious barking quickly changed to a snorting and yipping, and Bert could already smell the skunk. He turned to run, knowing Odie would be returning to him to seek his help in solving this new problem that he had created for himself. Dogs are faster than humans, and Odie quickly caught up with Bert. Long story short, the new oilskin trench coat and beaverskin hat, along with Bert's other clothing that day, were never worn again. Man's best friend, yeah, right.